He didn't expect to lose his family over a bathroom door. Daniel had come home that summer, hoping for something simple: grilled food, laughter in the backyard, the kind of warmth he hadn't felt in months. He hadn't seen his relatives since he came out the year before. Some stayed silent, some sent vague texts, but no one ever said, "Don't come back." So when his aunt invited him to the annual family BBQ, he said yes. Maybe it was naive, maybe it was brave, but Daniel was tired of pretending that distance didn't ache. The house hadn't changed: the old wood siding, the familiar smell of charcoal and apple pie, the backyard full of lawn chairs and cousins chasing each other through sprinklers. For a moment, it almost felt like nothing had happened. Until it did. Halfway through the afternoon, Daniel went upstairs to use the only bathroom. The hallway was quiet. He knocked gently. No response. He waited. Knocked again. Still silence. Assuming it was empty, he opened the door. Inside, behind the frosted glass shower door, was Emma, his 15-year-old cousin. Daniel froze. "Oh." She screamed. He slammed the door shut and apologized through it immediately. His heart was pounding, his palms cold with sweat. It had lasted maybe 2 seconds, a moment of pure, stupid human error. He stood outside for a second longer, horrified, then went back downstairs, hands still shaking. He said nothing, tried to bury it beneath grilled corn and polite smiles. Umau came down 20 minutes later, hair wet, wearing a clean t-shirt, laughing with her brothers. She didn't even look at him, so Daniel thought maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. That was his first mistake. The next morning, his mother called. Her voice cracked the second she spoke. "What did you do to Emma?" Daniel stopped breathing. His mother said Emma told her aunt, told everyone that he had opened the door on purpose, that he stared, that she was afraid, and that she thinks he might have done other things before. Daniel's knees buckled. He tried to explain that he knocked, that he didn't hear anyone, that it was a total accident, but his mother was crying too hard to hear him. She said Emma was traumatized, that the family believed her, that they didn't want to see him anymore. Then his father got on the phone and screamed. The words predator, disgusting, and not welcome here fell like punches. Daniel hung up the call with trembling fingers. That was the last time he spoke to them for 4 years. By evening, family group chats had gone silent. Messages vanished. His cousin unfollowed him. Invitations stopped. A door had opened for 2 seconds and an entire life shut behind it. They didn't ask what really happened. They didn't want to know. That night, Daniel lay in bed, the ceiling above him spinning, the echo of Emma's scream ringing in his ears, and wondered how something so small had destroyed everything he once thought was unshakable. He didn't touch his dinner. He didn't sleep. All he could do was replay those 2 seconds, again and again. He kept asking himself, would anyone believe me? Not when the lie was easier to swallow than the truth. If you've ever had your life shattered by a single moment, or been judged before anyone asked for your side of the story, this is a story you need to hear. Follow along and subscribe to Heart Stories, where the truth always has a voice. Daniel lost everything in less than a week. His college called to inform him of an immediate investigation. The scholarship board suspended his funding, pending outcome. The dean, who had once praised him as a rising voice in student affairs, said he should take a voluntary leave. Daniel didn't even protest. What would he say? His parents changed the locks on the house. A week later, his mother sent a single message. Until you get help and tell the truth, we don't want to see you. He read it twice before deleting it. Not because it didn't hurt, but because he couldn't read it again without breaking. Daniel moved into a spare room offered by a coworker at the bookstore. It smelled like old paper and detergent, and the mattress was secondhand. Still, it was a place to breathe. He tried to return to class, but the whispers followed. Someone had heard something from a cousin. One professor stopped calling on him. Another suggested he focus on mental health. He dropped out after 3 weeks. There was no money left and no strength to fight. At night, sleep came in fragments. He'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying those seconds over and over. Knock, open, scream, close. Silence. Sometimes he wondered, did he miss something? Did he look too long? Did his presence feel threatening? That thought alone was its own kind of prison. But then came Jason. They met when Daniel was covering a late shift at the bookstore. Jason had been browsing the psychology section, reading quietly for almost an hour. There was something calm in him. Not soft, but steady, like someone who had learned how to hold broken things without letting them slip. He was adopted, raised by conservative parents in Ohio, disowned after coming out at 16. He had lived through couches, shelters, food pantries, and finally made it to art school on his own terms. They didn't fall in love fast, but they healed into each other. Jason never asked Daniel to explain the story. He only asked once, gently, "Do you know what you did that day?" Daniel said yes. He told him everything. Jason nodded, then said, "That's enough." For the first time in a long time, Daniel exhaled without guilt. Still, the pain didn't disappear. He kept going to therapy, a low-cost clinic 3 subway stops away. His therapist, Melissa, helped him unravel the trauma with patient hands. She called it familial exile, a term he hadn't heard before but felt like truth. He brought a notebook to every session, wrote letters he never sent. One was addressed to his mother. It ended with, "When I needed to be heard, I only heard the door shut." In quiet moments, he remembered childhood birthdays, Emma sitting beside him, laughing with cake on her nose. The hours they spent hiding under the porch from summer storms, whispering secrets in the dark. Those memories had once made him smile. Now they made his chest ache. He watched from afar as his family continued their lives' vacations, holidays, graduations without him. His name was erased like a stain. No one asked how he was. No one wondered if the truth had another side. He learned to stop waiting. He started working nights, enrolling in community college with loan support, studying design, then tech. He and Jason moved into a small apartment where the floor creaked, but the light was good. He learned how to cook for 2, how to sleep through the night, how to laugh again carefully. But even on good days, he carried the silence like a weight in his pocket. 4 years passed, and no one said sorry. Not yet. It arrived on a Wednesday, the kind of gray, slow afternoon where emails blended into one another. Daniel was sorting invoices at work when a notification popped up. Subject line: video from June 3rd, 4 years ago. "I think it's yours." There was no name, no greeting, just a download link and a short message. "I used to work maintenance at your aunt's country house. We kept backup footage on a private NAS. I found this during cleanup before the demolition. I remember the incident. I remember you. I think you deserve to see this." Daniel hesitated before clicking. His hands shook. The file loaded grainy hallway footage from the second floor. No sound, just a timestamp in silent frames. The video showed Daniel approaching the bathroom door. He knocked, waited. He knocked again. Still nothing. Then, slowly, he opened the door just a crack before jerking back and slamming it shut. The entire motion lasted no more than 2 seconds. He stood outside, clearly startled, muttered something inaudible, and walked away. That was it. There was no stare, no intent, no lingering look, only confusion, surprise, respectful retreat. Daniel stared at the screen for a long time. He didn't cry. He didn't smile. What he felt was something heavier: validation too late. That footage wouldn't bring back what was lost. But it was truth, tangible, time-stamped, impossible to rewrite. At the bottom of the email, another line had appeared. "My name is Alex Rivera. 4 years ago, I was fired for reporting a security issue at your aunt's house. The camera wiring didn't match code. They told me to shut up. I didn't. I got replaced. I always wondered what happened to you after that weekend. When I saw your name on an old file folder, I remembered. I'm sorry I didn't speak up back then, but I hope this helps now." Daniel read the email twice and then 3 more times. The corners of his vision blurred. He forwarded the footage to his personal account. Then he downloaded a copy onto a flash drive. Then another. and another, just in case. That evening, he sat across from Jason at the dinner table. Footage paused on the screen behind him. Jason didn't ask if it was real. He simply said, "Now they can't pretend anymore." Daniel nodded, but part of him wasn't ready. He didn't send it to his parents that night, or the next. It sat in his inbox like a sleeping animal, quiet but alive. What finally pushed him forward wasn't anger. It was clarity. They had taken his truth, ignored his voice, cast him out like a threat. Now he had the one thing they couldn't deny. He wrote a message with no introduction and no goodbye. No explanation, just the file and a line beneath, "I don't need your apology. I just need you to see it." Then he hit send. For the first time in 4 years, Daniel slept through the night. They met in the same house where it began. Daniel hadn't set foot inside since that summer. The paint on the porch was the same. The cracked tile in the entryway hadn't been fixed. The hallway still smelled of lemon cleaner and something stale beneath it, memory. Maybe. His parents were already seated when he arrived. His mother avoided his eyes. His father looked smaller than Daniel remembered, like someone trying not to take up too much space. Emma sat on the far end of the couch. Her hair was longer now, curled over her shoulders. Her hands fidgeted in her lap. Beside her, her mother rested a firm hand on her back, protective, as if Emma were still the victim. Daniel remained standing. He looked around once, then spoke. "I want to hear from each of you. Not excuses, not general apologies. I want you to tell me exactly what you did and how you plan to make sure it never happens again." No one moved at first. The silence settled like dust. His mother was the first to speak. Her voice was soft, careful. She said she was sorry, that she shouldn't have cut him off, that she should have listened. Daniel asked, "Then why didn't you?" She looked down and said that Emma had seemed so upset, so believable. They thought they had to protect her. He nodded once, slowly. "So you protected her feelings over my life?" There was nothing left to say. His father cleared his throat, said he was ashamed of how he reacted, that he was afraid. Daniel stared at him, afraid of what the answer came quieter, that you might be dangerous. The words landed like a blow. There was no defense against that, only quiet devastation. Then came his aunt. And the real damage began. When Daniel asked her directly whether she had told Emma to keep lying, she stiffened. "No," she said quickly. "I only wanted to protect her. I didn't tell her to lie, but you didn't tell her to tell the truth either." Daniel said, "I didn't want to confuse her. She was vulnerable. I did what I thought was right." Emma turned slightly. "That's not what happened." Everyone looked at her. She wiped her eyes, then spoke in a voice that trembled but didn't break. "I told you I wanted to take it back. After a couple of months, I knew I made it up. I wanted to say it out loud. But you told me that no one would believe me if I changed my story now. You said it would make things worse." Her mother's face drained of color. "That's not Emma. You're misremembering." "No," Emma said. "I remember exactly what you said." Daniel didn't speak. He didn't need to. His uncle stepped in, trying to soften the moment. He said everyone had made mistakes, that the important thing now was moving forward. Jason, who had stayed quiet until then, stood from his seat in the corner. He looked around the room. "If Daniel forgives all of this too quickly," he said, "then what's to stop you from doing it again?" The room tensed. Jason continued, "You think you've owned your part, but most of you are still just trying to make this easier on yourselves. This isn't about resolution. It's about reality." Daniel watched his family shrink beneath Jason's words. Then he stepped toward the doorway. He turned back once and said, "The son you abandoned no longer exists. You don't get him back just because you finally decided to see what was always there." He walked out without waiting for a response. No one followed. 6 months passed. Daniel didn't hear from his family again, except for a few hollow emails checking in. "Hoping you're okay. We've changed." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. He had returned to school, working part-time at a design firm, sketching future homes for people who might actually feel safe in them. Jason had been promoted, and they'd moved into a place with real windows, real space, and sunlight that fell in clean sheets across the hardwood floor. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived. Thick parchment, hand-addressed, sealed in wax. It was from a law office in upstate New York. The return address was unfamiliar, but the name printed across the front made his chest tighten. Evelyn Wexler, his grandmother. She had passed away 2 years earlier, just before the pandemic. He hadn't been told until months later. There had been no invitation to the funeral, no obituary sent, just silence. Inside the envelope were two things: a letter and a notarized copy of a private will. The letter was short, written in tight, deliberate script. To the only one in this family who ever looked me in the eye and spoke the truth. I knew what happened that weekend. I heard Emma crying one night. Months later, she wanted to tell the truth, but someone told her not to. I was old, but I wasn't deaf. I didn't say anything because I was afraid it would break the family. But not saying anything broke you. And that's the regret I'll carry into the next life. This land belonged to your grandfather. He always said it should go to the person with the most courage. So I'm giving it to you. The will confirmed it. Daniel was now the legal owner of a small property in the Catskills, 2 acres, an old barn, and a cabin that hadn't been touched in decades. At the bottom of the page was the name of the executor, Alexander Rivera. Daniel blinked. It couldn't be. He called the number listed. A familiar voice answered. Yes, Alex said, smiling through the phone. After the hotel, I went back to school. Law degree, bar certified. Life's strange like that. Daniel laughed for the first time in weeks. You really stuck around. Alex paused, then said, I told myself I wouldn't stay silent again. Not when the truth is trying to live. In the months that followed, Daniel renovated the barn. He didn't sell it. He didn't turn it into a vacation home. Instead, he made it into something new, a space for teens who had been cast out, for kids who didn't have another place to land, a place for stories that had been silenced too long. He named it Second Light. Jason helped design the interior. Alex helped with zoning and permits. They hung a plaque above the entrance, etched with a quote from Evelyn's letter, give it to the one with the most courage. Daniel never saw his aunt again. His parents sent him a letter once, not a threat, not a plea, just a photograph of the old house. On the back, in his father's handwriting, were, we hope you're happy. He didn't respond because he was, and it wasn't their business anymore. If the people who were supposed to protect you chose not to, would you still let them back in? Or would you build something stronger on your own? Let us know in the comments, and if you believe in the power of truth and quiet strength, subscribe to Heart Stories for more stories that speak for those who weren't heard.